You're awesome.
So are you.
Can I tell them why you're here for
Sure,
so
of
long?
course, yeah.
It's,
Why not?
I mean, she's here this morning because Bernice is, because she loves us, and
It's
she'll tell you
true.
more. Also, she's also in Texas for a month
Mhm.
to help create a MFA in
Well, I'm just doing an
songwriting.
undergraduate thing right now.
An undergraduate thing in songwriting at Shriner University in Kerrville. How awesome!
Yeah.
Wonderful.
It's very
Wonderful. How great it is, you know, you think of college, you think of organic chemistry. How cool to go songwriting. You know? I mean, it's actually pleasurable. Also brings joy to a lot of others. Organic chemistry, maybe not so much, but it's interesting. I don't know. There's a Perry Como song called Catch a Falling Star. I didn't know it was Perry Como, but it's a long time ago. And he says, catch a falling star and put it in your pocket, never ever let it go. And he talks about having a pocket full, with a pocket full of starlight, you can do anything. So that's the gist of today, and really this whole series this month about how our good is hidden in plain sight. Keep a pocket full of starlight. To me, what that means is you got your faith on your hip. You got your faith right at hand. You're knowing that no matter what else is going on, you can pull out the starlight. I pull out my pocket to get lint, maybe a Tic Tac, you know. But you pull this out and you look at it and say, oh yeah, I remember now who I am. See, I have this theory, I believe it's sound, that there are only two kinds of people in this world. The people who remember who they are and the people who are about to. So, which am I ask myself, having come up with this brilliant, incisive theory. I am both of these people. I remember who I am, except when I don't. But when I don't, I know where to look to be reminded. And I do have the advantage of some time put in knowing this. So more of a habit has been built into remembering who I am than for the person who is maybe for the first time encountering this idea. We had a newcomer at the first service, let himself be known as a newcomer. In fact, he called himself the new guy. He said, "I'm the new guy." He came in. I'm looking around to see if he's here. He stayed for coffee. He said he might sit through the second service. He came in and he was standing at the back, and we were testing out the new soundboard, which arrived just this week. More on that momentarily. And he starts waving to me. Well, I can't see under these lights who it is, so I waved back. I thought it was Jim Gibson, because he looked kind of like him, you know. And he wasn't. He says, he wasn't waving at me because he knew me. He was waving to say I can hear it in the back. Wow. As we're standing here going, mic test 1, 2, 3, you know. But he was the new guy. And so I directed a lot of what I had to say at 9:30 to the new guy. You do this in 12-step meetings too. Somebody new, so it's first step meeting, you know, and you go there. And so I directed a lot to the new guy. Then he came up after and met and interacted with me, and it turns out he's not new. I knew his mom. His mom attended here years ago, and she's moved away. And he was a little kid when he came here the first time, and now he's back, you know. But so in my thinking of that, we had a new guy. Where I was going with this was that this is a habit that I think it's useful to build. This idea that there's a non-physical reality back of the physical that is the source of the physical. We've always known that. I maintain everybody knows that. And I know that's hubris, you know, to think that what you believe is what everybody really wants to believe. But I actually do believe this. That this is what everybody wants to believe. That deep down inside they believe that there is a spiritual realm. They may not call it that from which everything comes. And the Pocketful of Starlight is a reminder of that. But it gets better than that. Not only is there a spiritual dimension from which everything comes, it never left. This is it. This is that dimension. Clad in form. This is heaven, clad in earth. Right here. Is that a stretch? It is if you have a very narrow, judgmental heaven where only good people go who've done excellent things. But if heaven instead is all embracing, in the way the meaning, a meaning, I think like fourth down in the dictionary, a meaning of the word perfect is embracing all things. It's not a superlative of good. You see? It's not an A plus instead of an A. Perfect just means all inclusive. Nothing's missing. There's not a chunk out of it. It's all there. Well, so it is. So it is with this idea of the heavenly spiritual realm right here. And it includes conflict and upset and discord. It includes a whole list of really ugly stuff as possibilities. Alongside, I would guess, a longer list of really beautiful stuff also as possibilities through which we may toggle. Jeffrey Oshman, who is our music director here at Creative Life, was instrumental in the acquisition of a new soundboard in the last week. A fancy digital soundboard that lights up in many different colors and is capable of steering the International Space Station. It's got gizmos and wingbats and ding-dongs, all sorts of things. The other thing pushed speakers. This thing sculpts sound. I read that in the manual, the 74-page manual that he sent. It will sculpt sound. Did you know sound needed to be sculpted? Well, you might just as well with it, you know. I bring this up because that thing will do the right thing by you. If you do the right thing by it. And I got a crash course between services in how to boot it up and boot it down. It was here last Wednesday, and I made a terrible mistake because I thought it was simply something that you turn on and off. And so I turned it on, slapped at the microphone, didn't hear anything, a while later turned it off. It's like turning off your computer. It scolds you the next time, right, Jeffrey? The next time you turn it on, it comes up and it says, I was not properly shut down the last time. This could be a serious problem if you keep doing this going forward, you know. So I would, so he showed me how to do this, And it has all sorts of options that you have to go through to understand, you know, to get to the right thing, to back out of. None of them are wrong, but only one of them is appropriate. See? Coming in and going out. Booting up, shutting down. There's only one appropriate choice per menu item to get to where you want to go. Otherwise, I don't know, you get marching band out of the thing or bagpipes or something. It's, you know, there's only one. But you see what I'm saying? But they're all included. And they're all perfect for some application. It's just like your computers, your phones, all of your devices, you know? There's no wrong thing you can do, including throwing the thing on the ground and stomping on it, because that some would call that performance art, you know? But is that what you want to do? Is that maximizing the use for your particular desired outcome? That's the question to ask. This is how it can be, that all is spirit, but there's a certain way you prefer to go. It's why when we get into Thanksgiving time and our thoughts turn toward gratitude and forgiveness and so on, all these are posited as beautiful spiritual things to do. I was taught because God will be happy if you forgive. Because God forgives. If you forgive, good on you, God says, because you've done, that's my boy. You've done what I think you ought to do. And gratitude, because you don't want to be ungrateful. You don't want to be an ungrateful wretch, do you? No, look at all the, and so you are, and so there's a lot of finger wagging and scolding, and there's a lot of the kind of, you didn't shut me down the right way last time, that goes on in terms of that inner dialogue. So I was taught to forgive, and I was taught to give thanks, and the same stuff, and I was taught to God bless mommy and God bless daddy, and, you know, go through all of the prayers and this kind of thing. I was taught the same stuff you were, but what I was not taught was why it really works, why it really matters, why it really, really counts. And that is because you're setting the stage for what is to come through a science, not a special relationship, but through a science. Not because God will be happy, because God's not capable of being unhappy. Or for that matter, happy. Because we're not talking about a big personality. It's not Santa Claus, you know? It's not something that has to be jollied up or toned down or whatever. We're talking about a principle of creation. Where's the human part of it? Where's the personality part of it? That's a good question. You are, and I am. We are that. That's what we bring to the table, is the spontaneity and the exuberance and the silliness and the weird mood swings and all of that. Are you going to sing about neurosis again?
Sure.
Good. Yeah, neurosis, all of this, that's what we contribute. But in the big picture, it's neutral. It's neutral. Like the soundboard is neutral. I can give it a personality. We'll probably, being who we are, give it a name at some point. dress it up for the holidays, put a Santa hat on it or whatever, you know. But the thing is really neutral. If it feeds back, it's because there's something in the arc of electricity in the room, and it's giving you a signal that, hey, this is not workable. Very much the same way that if there's pain in your body, it's not a punishment. It's telling you there's something out of whack here. There's a relationship that's gone awry, and it needs adjusting in some fashion. So we deal with this. So why be grateful? Why forgive? Why do all of this spiritual stuff? Because it lays down karma for us, to put it in the bluntest possible terms. It paves the path before you. When you're grateful proactively for what is yet to come, you're putting something there into the science, into the equation that causes it to be drawn toward you, causes you to be magnetized toward it. When you forgive, you're not letting other people, you know all this, you're not letting other people off the hook. It's really not about them. It's you stop flooding your own body with toxins. Would you like to stop flooding your own body with toxins? Doesn't that sound awful? I'm going to flood my body with toxins over you. And you might not have been in my life for 50 years, but I'm going to think up who you were and flood my body with toxins over you today. This is insanity. If you saw somebody doing that and it was depicted that way, it was clear that I will drink this poison over a distant memory. I mean, you would do everything you could. You'd call the police. I mean, there'd be a wellness check. You'd do everything you possibly could to intercede, slap the thing out of their hand. But we do this to ourselves without even thinking about it, because we haven't been taught to think about it. It just hasn't really occurred to us. Because I'm going to hold this grudge, because if I let go of this grudge, they're off the hook, you see, and they'll fly away scot-free, and I'll never get what I want, which is what? Which people never really think about that. I want vengeance, and then what? And then how will you feel? You'll have vengeance. There'll be a smoking crater where that person used to stand. And then how you know, then what? Well, and I don't know, I haven't thought that. I just want vengeance. What you want is an adrenaline rush. You want to see them go up in flames right before your eyes because they hurt you. But here's the thing, is if you don't change the dynamic, somebody else will hurt you. Because you haven't yet changed the process by which you cause yourself to navigate into situations. And this gets tricky, because it sounds sometimes like victim shaming. But there's a science at work here that causes all of us to cross paths in the way that we do. And all that's suggested in this teaching is have a look at your side of that. What's your part in that? And do you realize it can be different? It can be different. I would suggest to use this. Don't jump first to the worst thing that's ever happened to you, to the big wound in your life. To test the science on that first. Because it might be a little bit much to ask. Of you, not of the law, not of the spiritual side of things, but of your own buy-in. Start instead today looking forward and say, how can I, like in the 12 steps, it's, you know, you make amends. And then you continue to make amends wherever amends are needed. You go forward making amends. A better way than going forward making amends is to go forward not doing things that require amends. I think you'd agree, you see. And so we go forward now looking at how would it be if I didn't assemble in my life situations requiring forgiveness? How would it be in my life if I went forward in a state of perpetual, not situational gratitude? Perpetual, not situational gratitude. Grateful is, ooh, I wanted that, thank you. Perpetual is, thank you. Thank you for all of this. It's raining, thank you. The sun's shining, thank you. The answer is yes, thanks. The answer is no, thanks. The answer is come back tomorrow, thanks. It's all good. It all fits. It all belongs somewhere. And if you go forward in that kind of spirit, stuff tends to work out. That's the spiritual way of putting it. Rather than you manifest your everything. Stuff tends to work out. to your advantage and not to the disadvantage of anyone else. Because in the big picture, this gets into the deep stuff we get into in the classes. In the big picture, there is no one else. There's one life, having an experience of itself by means of you and the person sitting next to you, but they're really not divided entities, you see. As you go forward like this, stuff tends to work out. And a life that is comprised of things that have worked out is a life worth having. It's a life, yeah, I'm winning at life. Life is good. Stuff works out. Some days chicken, some days feathers, but stuff works out, right? Your highs get higher and your lows get higher. You still have highs and lows, but the whole thing is ramped up a bit. That's a good life. And that's the least we might ask. That's the least we might ask. The creative ideas that come swooping in, that's lanyap. That's a southern term. It means like gravy, extra, throw in a little extra. Like the food back here, But freedom from pain, great friends, interesting conversations, cool people that you happen across, bits of information, your psychic awareness just lights up, and you know stuff you have no reason to know empirically. You just kind of know it. You just kind of show up at the right place at the right time. And if it isn't the right place, they come and get you by cab and take you, and if it isn't the right time, you set your clock wrong and you showed up an hour early because it was the end of daylight saving. It's like it turns into the right time. If these aren't the right people, they turn into the right people. And this is one of the coolest aspects of it, is folks will think that, well, when I have my spiritual life fully under control, I'll have no enemies. I'll get rid of, there'll be no irritations. I'll get rid of all of the bothersome people in my life. And like, they'll all get put on a raft, and go off. But what really can happen is that the people who are troublesome and weird in your life stay, but the weirdness doesn't. The energy shifts, and it's like, oh, now I get who you were. Have you ever had people like that in your life? Where it's like they just really irritate. I remember my mom there was a woman, my mom worked at the same place. She was in academics, and she worked at the same place for decades. And there was a woman came to work with her about 10 years before she retired, and they hated each other. I was a little kid, so I didn't really know. Well, I was about 12, but I didn't. My mom would come home and she'd complain to her mother, my grandmother who lived with us, and she'd and I can't stand her. Well, come to find, then the thing that happened was the lady she hated moved into our building. Oh. And so you had to ride up and down in the elevator with her. This is in New York. And then they became friends. Oh. The other woman came and asked my mom if she would cat sit for her while she went away. My mother did not like animals, but she, for whatever reason, agreed. And over that, they forged they started talking. And they forged a friendship. And as I got older and watched the two of them, I realized they were very similar people. And that was why they didn't like each other. They got on each other's nerves because their personalities were so much the same. And a good, 30 years after that, when my mother passed, I got the most beautiful, long, handwritten letter from this woman. Mm-hmm. They had now been friends for all of this length of time, Well, we all have stories like that, don't you? The kid that used to pick on you on the playground at school or something, and then suddenly you realize maybe why they were doing that. Maybe there was trouble at home, or they had a learning disorder or something that was causing them frustration, and they took it out on you. Or they were very similar to you, and there was a competitive thing going on. In any event, what you tend to find is that rather than putting troublesome people on a raft and sending them up to the other side of the continent, that they transform. I know I make it sound too good to be true. Yeah. but you wouldn't be listening to it if some part of you didn't agree. You buy in on some level. Well, now that may be pushing it just a little bit. Okay, then prove me wrong. Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, that there may be meat in mine house, and bring the tithes into the storehouse, and something, I may open the windows of heaven and pour out such a blessing upon you, there shall not be room enough to receive it. And most people think that's talking about like money, but it's really talking about grace. So prove me wrong. Try this. Try imagining that you have a pocket full of starlight. You have a pocket full of this amazing star stuff that reminds you of your divine estate, your divine destiny. And you can take this out under any circumstances, in any situation, and be reminded. And live like one who is reminded. Speak and act and move like one who has been reminded of the majesty of their own being. And watch what happens. Watch what happens. Okay? So more on this as the month wears along. I want to invite you on Wednesday night. I know Melody's going to cover this, but she hasn't heard this part in the announcements. Rick Hutner was supposed to be with us on Wednesday night to speak. Unfortunately, he has been detained and will be postponing until after the first of the year. So Danielle Mercadal, who spoke last month, and we just all lost our minds. She's one of our newest practitioners. She's our board president. She's going to be speaking Wednesday night. Do yourself a favor and come hear her, because she puts it just with a capital T. I mean, there it is. So on this also, she will be speaking. The same thing. Our job here every Sunday, every Wednesday at Creative Life is to keep working away at it with this idea of the ubiquity and the universality of spirit as you. Okay? Let's know together now. There is one life, one power, one presence, just one. One is all that's needed, because it folds into itself all apparent opposites, all variety, all diversity, reconciles into a unity that is not ever a uniformity. And this one is present at every point throughout its creation, fully present. And how that's possible is because it's infinite. Therefore, it's unmeasurable. It's subjective. It can only ultimately be felt. This one works within itself between the levels of potential and form as a law, as a principle which I now direct along specific lines. In the manifestation for every person in this room, every person listening or watching at home, I direct it to manifest the greatest possible self-awareness. Because from that issues prosperity, harmony, health, and well-being, all of the goodies, all of this stuff we want and know that we want it, are made possible by self-awareness. Awareness of the self with a capital S. As the experience that Spirit is having in this world at this time by means of us. And I further affirm and know that for each one of us, it's easy to reach in our pockets and pull out this starlight. When things are tough or things are boring or clouds block the sun. And it's easy for us to remember as we do this that there was a time when we saw clearly, we knew and we felt no one could talk us out of it. That there was this one life having this experience of itself as us. And suddenly, our spirits are lifted. Suddenly, our minds are filled with brilliant creative ideas. Suddenly, anything becomes possible. Suddenly, we're young again. And for this knowing and its manifestation in form everywhere I turn, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
So it is.
Once again,
Bernice Lewis.
This one's by request.
yeah.
It's my hit,
Yay.
sort of. I wrote this 25 years or more ago when every single little detail in it was controversial, and I used to be terrified every time I sang it anywhere. I would shake in my shoes, but I would do it anyway. And now, the details are kind of cute and benign, which proves to me that the world does change. And just, to give credit where credit is due, after playing it for this many years, the great turning point for me when it became a song that was just fun and not controversial was the first time I played here at Creative Life. I played it, and there was a line I got to where the participants all stood up and clapped. And I'm not expecting you to do that today, but I am hoping that you'll sing along. Sing, yes. And honey, you've been driving yourself crazy too long. The scope of your existence, it's a sad and lonely song. It don't seem quite normal if you know what I mean. But normal's just sitting on the washing machine. It's a town in Illinois. It's the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. It's everything squeaky and clean. Middle, the average, the mathematical mean. Here we go. Normal's just a setting on the washing machine. There's a sweet couple who live down our street. A cat and a dog and a flat screen TV. One does the housework, one brings home the check. It sounds downright normal, but they're both the same gender. Yeah, exactly. It's a town in Illinois. It's the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. It's everything squeaky and clean. Middle the average. Middle the average. Mathematical mean. Normal's just a setting on a washing machine. My friend Zathira, he used to be Seth. He meets me at the door in a frilly white dress. Says, what's the difference if I'm a he or a she? There's things about both that I just like to be. It's a town in Illinois. It's the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. It's everything squeaky and clean. Middle, the average, mathematical mean. Normal's just a setting on the washing machine. So maybe you're sure that you should have had kids, or that you should never have done what you did. What makes you think that traditional bliss is half as much fun as a good neurosis? Here we go, it's a town in Illinois. It's the National Organization. It's everything squeaky and clean. Middle the average. The middle, the average, mathematical mean. Normal's just a setting on the washing machine. So let me just give you this piece of advice. Stay open-minded, treat yourself nice. 'Cause what you see ain't always what you're gonna get. And normal's just someone you don't know well.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a town in Illinois. It's the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. It's every